few seconds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show of Classroom Without Walls, episode 108. And on this show, every week on Wednesday, I go live. I interview leading social media, digital marketers, entrepreneurs. They come to the show and we share with you, and they share with you their best practices and strategies and tips so that you and I can future proof our business. And today we are talking about something very important that you and we almost do on a daily basis. That is creating presentations and delivering presentations and selling our ideas. And I have my dear friend, my guest of honor, Greg Rosner, to be on the show and to share with us how we can transform boring slide presentations into powerful, irresistible sales conversations. Wow, I definitely can't wait to learn more about this. And we are live on LinkedIn, we are live on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. So if you are joining us live right now, let me know in the comment section where you are joining us live from, social media wise and geographically speaking. And just in case you don't know who this amazing, passionate, entertaining guest is, and Greg Rosner is the founder and the CEO of Peach Kitchen. We actually connected in person last year at HubSpot, their inbound conference, and we had some brief conversations. So I have been following Greg for quite some time, really love his work. And you and I, everybody, we are in for a treat today. So Greg, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for spending an hour with us.
Fun. Awesome.
Anything you want to add to my very brief introduction?
Yeah, so just before we got started, you talk about your move to DC and how, what you're all about is sort of disrupting the status quo of education. So I think where you and I are sort of kindred spirits is I'm about disrupting the status quo of sales presentations. Because as you know, most sales presentations that you see, that we see, are terrible. And so why are they terrible? I mean, what have you seen? Like, give me a couple adjectives that describe what's so terrible about them.
They are just not engaging, and it's just a list of bullet points. And sometimes even worse, they have the entire paragraph on a slide. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, because, think about it. Where in the last 20 years, presentations have moved from being like information, like documents, like someone says, send me the presentation. So what are they really saying? They're saying, send me information. But then we live in a world of information where, like, on your phone, we live in a world where you can get any bit of information you want in a matter of seconds. Any bit, anything. So it's like the purpose of presentations have changed. If you think about it, they've changed. From in the past, it was a world where purpose of presentation was to convey information. And I wonder if Doctor, you could say the same thing, if the purpose of education has changed too. Because maybe in the past, education was about remembering facts and information transfer. Whereas now, since information and artificial intelligence is like taken over, it's everywhere, where information is cheap. Answers are cheap. You can get answers anytime you want. But what's expensive, what's hard to do is the question. A good question is worth 1,000 or more answers.
Yeah.
How do you teach people to ask good questions like that? That's brilliant, right? That's hard to do. So I think that's the change that we've seen in the world. And I think it's great the work that you're doing to transform, disrupt education, because it echoes the work that I'm doing to transform in B2B businesses where their sales presentation is all about them and nobody cares. Their websites are all about how great their product is, using language that nobody understands. And you go to the website, like, what does this company do? How is this company going to solve my problem? And what do they want me to do as a result? Those three questions. What do you do? How is it going to help me? And what are you asking me to do so it can solve my problem? That has to be answered in like 5 seconds when you go to a website. It's typically not in B2B. So many companies are sort of lost in their own sauce. But it's not just their website. It's their sales presentation as well. Their sales presentation, slide 1, about us. Slide 2, where when we were founded. Slide 3, all our beautiful customers. Nobody gives a crap. Nobody cares. So the idea of how do you structure your slides so that each slide is a conversation. And that means a slide could be blank with a question on it. That is a prompt or a trigger for salespeople to have a conversation, to ask a question about something that opens up the possibility of change. When I say change, that's the reason why you are there delivering a presentation in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Helping people change, helping people learn, helping people evolve. So, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. We definitely share some amazing synergy here between education and what we do as presenters. And everyone in the join us live, they are sharing in the comment section. Traditional sales presentation so boring, not engaging. So I want you to kind of maybe, I'm sure you have reviewed hundreds, if not thousands of presentations. So based on your experience, what are some common mistakes that sales presentations make? And you already mentioned a few, so I wonder if you can kind of give us a summary.
So it's going to be really hard for the people who are watching this, right? So I want everyone who's watching this, put on your helmet.
We already have 20 people join us live, so don't feel like your heart is broken. Yeah, okay. So go ahead.
So there's a couple signs that your presentation is broken. All right. So if you open up your presentation and number 1, it has a white background. Okay. That means that it's designed for a world where you're printing stuff out, where you don't want to use paper. So that means that your presentation is more information based versus conversational based. Number 2, if your presentation has page numbers on the bottom right hand corner, that's another telltale sign that your presentation was designed to be a document of information, not to be an opportunity to have a breakthrough conversation with your customer, right?
Wow.
Number 3, if your slide has, I would say, bullet points, if bullet points in general, like bullets on the slide, that's information transfer. That nobody remembers bullet points. Nobody's going to said, oh, you know what? I loved on slide 17, the 3rd bullet point. That really, it moved me. I will never be the same. I'll never forget that. Like, what? Right? But they will say, you know what? On that slide where you had the picture of the guy inside the car engine and he was trying to take apart the carburetor, like that was really cool. Like that's the way people fix things. So like they'll never forget that picture. So that's the thing. Like those are 3 telltale signs that presentations are not designed for conversations.
Wow, so, I love those 3 signs because I'm guilty. I wonder, the live audience, how many of you are guilty of making some of those mistakes, if not all of them? So that's like powerful what you just shared, Greg.
So I like to look at, so from doing literally working on thousands of presentations for businesses, there's a pattern that has emerged for what the best presentations need to be. And their pattern that's emerged is based on the movement between where people start out in the buying process and where they need to end in the buying process. So it's about change. It's about helping when you're presenting a solution, you're presenting some product or a service your company is offering, you're essentially helping your customer, your prospect, change from what they're doing today to what they would like to be doing, perhaps. So it's about change. So since the journey is about change, I like to think about this in terms of the classical storytelling structure, right? So in the classical storytelling structure, every Hollywood movie from Jason Bourne to The Karate Kid to Mary Poppins, you've got a character of the story, all right, who wants something. They want something, but they can't have it or they're stuck. And so they have a problem. And the problem is preventing them from moving forward. So then they meet Mary Poppins, or they meet Yoda, or Mr. Miyagi, or they meet like a guide who's been there before, who's been a hero before in their life, but now their purpose is to give you a process or give you a magic wand or an elixir or something that's going to help them transform and get to where they want to go, to join the force, to use the force to beat the empire, whatever. So that would lead them to success or to failure if they don't do it right. So that's the classic like hero's journey arc. It's about transformation. So I like to look at sales presentations in this context of transformation and change, because your customer is talking to you. Why? Because they want something, but they don't have it today. And they're curious, maybe you can help them solve this problem. So just by the setup of the stage, if you will, where you're about to present to your prospect, the stage is set where, guess what? You're not the hero of the story. They're the hero of the story. They're the ones that are suffering the problem and want to transform. And your role in that conversation is the guide, the trusted advisor who's going to help them understand the problem and maybe even describe their problem better than they can even describe it themselves, because you understand that problem like a doctor.
That's gold.
Like a cardiologist who knows, let me ask you, are you waking up at about 3 a.m. with some back pain? Like, oh my God, I am waking up at 3 a.m. with some back pain. How do you know that? Well, I'm a cardiologist, and I happen to know that this happens because I understand your problem better than you understand it yourself and the impact of that problem. And when you basically have a presentation and you spend some time, a slide or 3, diving into the problems, the impact of those problems in a way that really is brilliant and clarifies for your audience the depth of your understanding, before you even get to selling whatever it is that you're selling, they'll be like, holy shit, you really do understand our problem. And I think that you've got a solution even before I even seen your solution. So most people think that they have to establish credibility by showing like how great their product is. But I believe that you show your credibility in a presentation by spending time talking about your understanding of the problem.
Wow. What a paradigm shift, because now as I'm thinking about many of my presentations, I spend so many slides, building my authority, credibility, who am I, blah, blah, blah. So what you are saying is that we should instead focus more on the problems of our listeners, of our clients. Wow, that is so powerful. And you have actually, Greg, on your website, you mentioned you have a proven conversational presentation recipe.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you can share this conversational presentation recipe with us, and maybe even walk through an example. You can use a personal example, or anyone in the live audience want to share your personal example. So yeah, so share that recipe with us, and maybe even walk through an example.
So Pitch Kitchen, by the way, is the name of our company, pitchkitchen.com. And the idea is cooking up better presentations, better sales messages. And the recipe that we're talking about has sort of emerged over working on essentially thousands of presentations for sales teams, where they really want to transform from being sellers to being trusted advisors, and to make that transformation happen for them. And the recipe that we sort of been gravitating towards, I find that in doing these presentations that there's essentially 3 parts of every sales conversation that has ever taken place in the history of humankind. Typically, the first part of the presentation, you're always talking about, so where are you at today? What are the problems you're dealing with today? All the discussions around the problems. And I've basically found out there's basically 4 conversations in each of the 3 sections. So essentially, there's 12 conversations that help people in a sales process move from current state to their desired future state. So, but in the first part is typically discussions, conversations, presentations where you're talking about the problem, current state. The second is where you're talking about your what you're offering, how it works, social proof and other customers that are just like you that are using this to be successful, and the demonstration or the demo part, that's typically the second part. And then the third part of typically all presentations is when you get to how. Like, okay, that's great, but how is this going to work? And what are we going to do on Tuesday? And the details of the implementation and how. So this basic roadmap, problem, solution, and how, those three parts, that is a really good rubric to design any presentation where you want to help your customer evolve or change or get better. So within those three buckets, there are 4 conversations that we found that typically take place. And the writing a book now called The 12 Essential Conversations that turn your salespeople into trusted advisors goes into each of these. But there it is at a high level.
Wow, so that's this I really love, because I think there are some other examples or methodologies like 5 steps, 6 whatever. So I love how you have simplified this process. And do you mind kind of walking us through an example, or maybe one of your clients, if you don't mind sharing, or just a generic example so we can better understand and how to apply this?
Sure. So there's a website you can go to, bainsight.com, and this is a company that sell software that helps enterprises find what they're looking for inside the enterprise, basically creating a Google-like search or internet-like search in the enterprise. So that's what they're selling. But the problem that they had was that nobody really understood, customers didn't understand the value of that. And so we helped them do what Andy Raskin has prescribed, which is help them name the new game and basically call out what the old game was that enterprises were playing, which is finding information in different stores, like in Salesforce, in different databases, in HR. And if you wanted to find something within the company, you had to know where to look and you had to search in different places. And that was the way that, you would find what you're looking for. But that old way doesn't work anymore. It takes tons of time for employees to find what they're looking for. And what we help this company do is clarify what the name of the new game is, which is askable knowledge. So it's knowledge which is askable, that you can just, like you go to Google, tell me where the best pizza places are in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. Can you ask, in like a Google search, where is this document or what you're looking for in this company, in your company? And the answer is pretty much no. Most companies do not have search, which is askable. So we focused on the idea of askable knowledge being the narrative for what their customers really want to achieve. They want to get to a place where all their knowledge that they've invested billions of dollars in their entire enterprise globally is askable. So BA Insight, if you want to pull up the website just once again, you can see that the new message for the sales presentation is around how BA Insight is facilitating the connection of people who are looking for information with that information, rewarding questions with results. Stop sifting through information, start asking for information. So the result is a narrative, a story that positions the salespeople and BA Insight as a facilitator, a guide in helping solve a real problem that organizations have. Like, stop sifting for information store by store. Just to scroll down a little bit there, you can see that's a description of the problem. And so we used a photo of people like sifting through records. The idea that was the way people find information in companies today still. So as you scroll down further, you can see more of what the story is, asking a question like, is your knowledge askable? And most companies would say, no, it's not askable. And so you can see that a lot of this design and shows up inside the sales presentation, which I can't show you, it is confidential, but you can see that the sales presentation echoes a lot of this conversation, which is about how to turn organizations that are searching store by store into organizations that can find what they're looking for right now.
Wow. This is so powerful, and I love this example. I also love how clean the website is. Amazing, amazing. And everyone loves this. So thank you so much for sharing. I also want to kind of like follow up on what you shared. You talk so much about, even on the website, the hero's journey and also stories. And it is something that we don't often think about when we are doing like a sales presentation, stories. At least I don't think that much about it. So
Yeah.
maybe you can unpack this for us a little bit, Greg. Why stories are so powerful and so critical to do the presentations effectively, so that people can act on what we're asking for, purchasing from us,
That's a really good question.
actions.
That's a really good question. And so what I want to say there is, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this presentation? And is it just about the money? Do I want to just sell? Or do I actually want to help someone? And if the answer is probably going to be you're doing what you do because you really want to help people, then you're already positioned as the guide in that conversation, already as someone who sincerely wants to help someone solve a problem for their organization or whatever. So I think that subtle shift, if that's where you can position yourself as a platform for whatever you're going to present, then you're in a good space. If you're going to position yourself as a different character, like I'm going to come in there, I'm going to close the deal, I'm going to try to, close them on thinking certain ways, or try to manipulate them, or try to, then you're playing either, a bad movie. It's like, who wants that? Nobody wants to be closed on. Nobody wants to be pushed or manipulated. So I think fundamentally, you have to come from the place of being the guide instead of, and Donald Miller says this beautifully in his book, Story Brand, where in marketing, that you are positioning yourself as the guide instead of the hero.
Wow.
So in terms of advice, that's more foundational, subtle, like causal way to position like who you want to be in the presentation. But once you're there, then you have to look at the slides themselves. What are you showing? Are you using slides as a tool to have conversations about the problem, about the impact of that problem, about how your product can help them solve that problem, what outcomes that your customer is looking for, that this product or the service you're offering is going to help them attain or achieve? And then maybe asking them, if they had this that you just showed them, what would that create for them? What outcomes would that create for them? And do they want those outcomes? Or could they live with not having those outcomes? Because if they say, you know what, that's nice, but I'm pretty much okay with what we're doing right now, then there's nothing to sell. So it's like you're really good to have those conversations about the problem and what their goals are and what outcomes they may want to have because of your offering, because it helps you position yourself as the guide where you're trying to help them. But if what you're offering isn't something that they want or need or can live without, then you can basically part as friends, as a guide. Maybe in the future they could use that, but not now.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. And I see here's a question coming up from Gary. Thank you for joining us live. And I want to follow up with you regarding what you mentioned earlier after we answered this question from Gary.
Mm-hmm.
So he said he's not a fan, but I have seen plenty sales pitches where they effectively, let me highlight this, effectively try and sell
this is great.
why they are better than the competition.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this?
Yeah, let's leave that question up here. This is great for 3 reasons. One is because your customers don't really care about your competition. The only person that cares about your competition is you, because you're still thinking that you're the hero of the story, right? So what do your customers care about? They care about their problems and what happens if they don't solve their problems. So the fact is that more than 60% of deals are lost not to your competition, but do you know what they're lost to?
Wow.
They're lost to no decision or let's just keep things the way they are. So your biggest competition is not really your competition, but it is the status quo. It is just not changing. So, salespeople and sales presentations that have slides that says why we're better than the competition is totally off base.
Wow.
Because you're not really acknowledging the real competition, which are customers that are choosing to do nothing instead of buy your solution.
Wow. Again, #guilty. So again, I'm guilty of doing this. So thank you for unpacking that for us. Really, really powerful. Yeah, and thank you for asking this great question, Gary. Yeah.
Great question, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very common. Don't feel bad. It's very common in the 2010s and for presentations to have slides like about us, how we are different. Nobody cares about how you're different. They want to know about how you can help them solve their problems. So it's like the wrong questions to have on your slides. Who we are, why we're different. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I remember in one of your interviews, you actually mentioned the difference between kind of a TED Talk type of presentation versus what we do as marketers, as business owners. We're selling an idea, so or a product. So I wonder if you can unpack the differences between kind of a TED Talk type of presentation versus what we are doing here as marketers and business owners.
Yeah, no, I love, thank you for the question. So TED Talks, I love them. They're fun to watch, right? Everyone loves TED Talks. They're great. They're great. They're entertaining. They're thought-provoking. But the question is that enough to be thought-provoking in order for people to change, right? So if I think of all the TED Talks that I've watched, what have I done differently in my life as a result of watching those TED Talks? I mean, I think the power pose. Remember that TED Talk with the power?
Yes, Amy. Yeah, or Emily.
So, I mean, I've tried that and it feels good. Like right now I'm in the power pose. But, it's not enough to inspire people in your sales presentation. It's not enough to talk about big ideas. It's just not enough to get customers to influence what they're doing today and have them change what they're doing. You actually have to have conversations with them about what happens in their business if nothing changes from what they're doing today. What happens? Would you be okay in your life, in your business, if you were exactly the same place today as you are a year from now in your business? And if the answer to a question like that is yes, we'd be okay, there's nothing more to talk about.
I know.
Okay, so sales is about influencing change.
Wow,
and
I love that.
Conversations about that change. And that's why making your presentation where you've rehearsed every word and you can deliver a performance that is amazing, like a TED Talk, really is not what is effective in sales. Relationships and trust is built not on great performances, but on great conversations.
That is so tweetable. I love that. I love how much you really emphasize, changing and transforming from this typical monologue that we tend to have, a conversation with ourselves, into a two-way conversation with our listeners. And also reminds me of what you mentioned earlier, the difference between, I think you mentioned information transfer multiple times versus creating a experience for our listeners. So that is very powerful. I think I want to talk about this a little bit. I think another factor for us to have effective presentations where people are willing to buy is for us to clearly articulate our messaging, our ideas, the transformation that we are going to bring our consumers. So I think that is something that I struggle with. I also want to ask the live audience, how many of you can actually use one sentence to describe your product or your service, what you do? So on your website, Greg, you mentioned, you talked about the power of three method that you use to help people gain clarity on their messaging and also help them understand how they are going to help their customers to go through a transformation. So I wonder if you can share this power of three method with us so that we can gain more clarity
Sure.
on what we serve and what we do and how we can articulate very clearly, crystal clear, so our audience can understand what we do.
So
and also I want the live audience to try to answer that question. Can you actually use one sentence, only one, to describe what you do? So yeah, so share with us.
Well, I mean, you just did it there, like what we do, how we do it, and I forget the third one, but it's almost like the way that people speak. They're in threes. There's a magical power of just humans, friends, Romans, countrymen, past, present, and future, beginning, middle, and end. There's a huge power in coming to a presentation with three pieces, three parts. It's easy for you to remember. It's easy for your audience to remember. And as you're standing in one of the base, first base, second base, third base, like in baseball, as you're standing on one of those bases, you can unpack that base with all the knowledge and insights you have about that base. So that's just a really good rubric to use when presenting. That's what we mean by the power of three. Getting back to your, like when I mentioned before about the 12 essential conversations, each base of the three bases has four. That's the structure of that, but it's still essentially a three-base container for a presentation, a three-base roadmap from beginning, middle, and end, problem, solution, plan. Now, getting back to your question that you've just asked everyone, like, can you say forget about one sentence, can you say in 3 words, what you are calling your customers to become, or what you're calling them to transform into? And so I believe that every business, and I was educated by a wonderful woman named Dr. Michelle Mazur, who wrote a book called 3-Word Rebellion. And she and I both believe that every business should have their 3-word call to action, their 3-word story, their 3-word battle cry, or the 3-word change that they want to see in the world or in their customers' world, that calls them and inspires them to make that change from status quo to becoming better. So let me give you some examples of this. If you open your browser and go to chorus.ai, chorus.ai, this is a company that sells software that listens to sales conversations and helps provide insight into the talk-to-listen ratio and help salespeople become better and sales management know what keywords and what types of conversations are leading to more sales than others. And by the way, the leading indicator, you know what the leading indicator then, using this artificial intelligence to determine what the surest way to see if a deal is going to close, besides all the other data of like, why does this deal like a 90% close rate versus a 60% close rate? Chorus.ai and their competitor have found that what's called communication velocity is the leading indicator of whether a deal is going to close. That means how often emails are going back and forth with that customer. And that's the best indicator, not anything else, but that's the best indicator. Anyway, so that's an insight that the artificial intelligence has revealed, more than salesperson's judgment or how many people you talk to in that company being the best indicator of close. But if you bring up on your screen chorus.ai, they have...
Do you mind spelling it out for me?
Sure, chorus, chorus, chorus.ai. And they have a 3-word story that is really good, that speaks to their software, the benefit of their software. And there it is. Clone your closers. They've trademarked them. And that's calling their customers to the action that's going to make the biggest difference in their business. So think about other 3 or 5-word stories like Simon Sinek's Start with Why. Also, start is a verb. You know, it's an action. Start with why. It's calling to the how. How are you going to become better? start with why. Whether you love or hate Donald Trump, I know you're going to move to Washington, D.C. soon, but you're going to be living next to Donald Trump. You know what his 5 words were. By the way, I don't think he came up with those 5 words, but you know what those 5 words were that got the man elected president?
No, what are those?
Make America great again.
Yes.
So whether you love him or hate him, those words are powerful. It starts with a verb, and it calls people to a story and action to take. So there's many other great examples of this. I believe that businesses like Chorus, and if our customers as well, we work on helping them clarify what their call to action is. That it's not their whole elevator pitch, but it speaks to the change that your customers are looking to create.
Wow. This reminds me, and last year I had my friend Ryan Folland on the show, and he is also talking about the power of 3 words. So I wonder if there's a magic formula. So always start with a verb. Is that how we do this, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, a verb is action, like calling people to action to make a change, right? Calling to action, so it starts with a verb, like make, start, create, incite. There's other formulas as well. You can also describe the change, like what does it look like? But I think one of the most powerful, like just do it, Nike, just do it, right? Verb, just do it. Is just a verb? Just, I don't know if just is a verb. Yeah. Just do it. I don't know what just is, but
I don't think it's a word, but yeah, just do it. Yeah.
It's a call to action is what it is.
I love this. So what are the 3 words that you use for yourself for pitch cage?
Well, I'm still here. Stop presenting, start conversing.
I love it. And also this parallel. I love it. Yeah.
Presenting, start conversing. That's the working 4-word story.
Yeah. So I love this example from Krista. Thank you for joining us live, by the way. Take Back Mondays.
Nice.
Yeah. And I wonder if we have like people do quite a few, and if you guys can share in the comment section, what are the 3 words that you can use to describe your business? I need to give this more thought. I'm definitely struggling with this, but this is so powerful, yeah. But so hard to come up with.
It's very hard. It's very hard, and but it describes calling people to action is a different word set than describing the promised land, as Andy Raskin puts it. The promised land is like what it looks like in the world when the change has already happened. So like if you go to like HubSpot called it like inbound marketing. That was naming like that's inbound marketing. If you're doing inbound marketing, you're going to win. So that's a great description of the promised land. I think Chorus.ai uses Drift.ai. They use conversational marketing and creating marketing that's conversational, and that is the goal. So I think it's a different tactic, but both of them sort of dovetail together when you're trying to create a story around what problem you're solving and how you're helping your customers win.
So here's Drift. By the way, you sent me this really nice video using Drift. Those of you who don't know this is a great way, a great tool to record a quick video, and you can send to people, and people can even comment and engage with you that way. So I loved it. Yeah.
So like conversational marketing is the name of their new game. And what they do is they're selling essentially a little robot that lives on the website. There he is in the lower right-hand corner. And that little robot helps, like, I guess, quick chat with people to basically align them to schedule a meeting with a salesperson. So it kind of cuts out some of the chaff or the friction that happens when somebody just wants information and they can't get it, they can't get to speak to someone. It kind of flows them through a funnel to talk to a sales rep.
Wow, this is great. As we are sharing the screen now, I see this question from Peter. And I also have the same question myself. Is there a sweet spot, that ideal length or duration, or how long should a presentation be? How many slides should we have? Is there such a magic number based on your research and experience, Greg?
Yeah. So a matter of number of slides, it's a really good question. I think it's a matter of time. So how much time do you typically have to meet with people? And, people say, well, typically a sales presentation is about 25, 30 minutes. And so maybe you want to have somewhere between, I would say, 7 to 10 conversations in 30 minutes.
Wow.
When I say look at slides more as conversations, like if you were to listen to the whole 30-minute sales presentation, what are the different conversations you had to get them to a place where they can make a decision of what they want to do going forward? There's somewhere between 7 and 10 different conversations. So that's how you decide how many slides to show. That means to say, if you need 19 slides for one conversation because you want to show almost like a movie, like lots of different animations and things, that's fine. It's cool to show animations. So look at slides more as conversations, and then it removes the barrier of like, don't think of slides as pages, because pages is information. You want to look at slides as conversations. So it's not so much the number of slides, it's more like, what are the distinctions that you need to be making in the 30 minutes of time that you have with them?
Yeah, because conversations, they are experiences that we'll remember. They poke our heart, our emotions. Almost reminds me of that quote, like life is like not how many days you lived, but like how many experiences you have or something like that. So really like reminds me of that. And I think I'm really going to, after today's conversation, I will have to redo many of my slides and presentations. So can you, do you have, we discussed quite a few bad examples, and I wonder if you have some good examples besides yourself. We all know how amazing you are. Definitely check out Pitch Kitchen, some other good resources, or even templates. I don't know if templates are a good like good idea to use, but some other resources or
Yeah.
best
So I mean,
templates you want to share with
they're
us?
hard to find. I mean, really good presentations are hard to find because they're confidential and people don't typically share them. But I think from a design perspective, we like to use Prezi. Prezi is not so much slide based, but is more zooming based. So you can go to Prezi and get some really good creative ideas. As far as slide design goes, I think we generally like to look at each slide to be billboards and bumper stickers. Billboards like one big statement, and a bumper sticker would be also a statement. We also like to look at slides to be visual comparisons. So since we're talking about change often in presentations, like what you're doing today versus what we think you should be doing, we often like to design slides where you have before and after. Like, this is what you did in the 2010s. This is what companies are winning or doing in 2020s and solving the same problem. So there's a side-by-side comparison. So you want to take advantage of the fact that we are visual people, humans are visual creatures, and you want to show comparison and make distinctions between this and that. And showing a simple slide with a before and an after on a slide is such a powerful way to tell a story about outcomes, for example. So these are suggestions of how you want to design slides.
I talking about the before after. I really love your website. Everyone should definitely check Pitch Kitchen out, and it's so cleverly designed. And I love I think you have this before after contrast on your website. I really love it. It's so good.
Yeah,
it makes me want to read my website.
Before and after is a really easy way to describe the impact and the outcomes.
So the left is the before picture. This one is the, oh my God, you can't even tell.
Yeah, it's totally different because it goes away from the idea of printing books. I mean, look at the left side is just information, which, by the way, that's what a website is for. A website is to transfer information, and you shouldn't use a slide presentation to transfer information. You should send people to your website instead. The purpose of a presentation is to actually have a conversation, at least in the 2020s now. In the past, it was different. So as you're an educator, so you know that even education is transformed, that students work together, they collaborate on projects, and it's not so much top down, it's more sometimes creating a discussion and people talk together, and so it's like, I think that the style of education, because it's transformed, that the way that customers are young and they're learning, the way that they want to get information is also changing. They don't want to be in a top-down teacher-student model. They want to be in a more collaborative model of learning.
And 100%, I'm sure that they are now learning how to do presentation like this from their school teachers. So this is really powerful. I want to give a quick shout out to Vicky O'Neill, and she loves everything you mentioned. And she's going to connect with you on LinkedIn and check out your website.
Cool.
Those are really powerful examples. I wonder, we don't have much time left, and is there a difference between in-person presentation, selling our ideas versus online? Because I pretty much work online, work from home, and anything in particular that we need to pay attention to for online presentations, webinars, live shows, there are just so many distractions. You don't even know if the person is actually watching your slide, or should we even use a slide. So some maybe best practices you can share with us?
Sure. So presenting in the digital world like this, like desktop share, is different, very different. I'll describe some of the differences that we've observed versus presenting in person. But when you're presenting in person, there's some really magical things that you can do by combining the digital world that most people are not doing. So what I mean by that is, for example, there's technology like you're using Slido. I saw it before, right? Slido?
Yes.
So Slido is a wonderful tool to use in presentations and in education, where your presentation is simultaneously getting polls and getting people's questions, and people are upvoting their questions. So combining the digital world in a face-to-face environment using something like Slido and other technologies is wonderful. It's like the superpower of a presenter to turn the presentation into a conversation by using some technology live. So that's what I'm a big fan of, people using that technology in live settings. That said, you can always, if you don't have that technology, you can always just say, let's see a show of hands, and do it old school to get interaction. If we go back to the other side, if you're presenting digitally, before I go there, let's go back to the room where you're physically there with people. One of the biggest differences there is you don't really have to perform as much. You can rest and relax and be okay with the silence, because your presence is there. It's felt in the room.
That's so true.
You can really slow down and really, I say, connect deeply with your audience. When you move to the digital world, it's a little bit more of like eye candy, and you have to sort of be a performer more and keep people's attention more, because they're being distracted by their physical world. They have people in their office and things moving around, and their phones are ringing, and it's like you are competing for their attention with that. So you kind of have to dial up a little bit the performance aspect of your presentation there. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Look at me. You just took off your jacket. I'm here, doing all this, trying to grab people's attention. It is like a performance, 100%. So I so agree with you. Yes. Yes.
And it's so great to talk to you about and unpack all this and find, that what you have done, the impact that you're making in education and helping teachers and helping them transform their students. It's great, the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And I do so much work online, live streaming and all those tools that you mentioned, really help me deliver my message in a more interactive way. So are there any tools or resources or maybe books you want to share with us, Greg? You mentioned quite a few. All of them are so powerful.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of favorite books behind me. So this one has really not too much to do with business, but just more to do with life. Highly recommended book. Just read it. Awesome. Okay. Another book recommendation I would like to make, since I mentioned her book before, The 3-Word Rebellion.
Oh, yeah.
Create a one-of-a-kind message that grows your business into a movement. This is a wonderful book and really powerful stuff. And I think lastly, what I want to recommend. Well, it's mentioned what to do when it's your turn. I know that you interviewed, and I'm so honored to be interviewed by you. You interviewed Seth Godin like last year, and he wrote this book, and I really enjoy this. Speaks about the power of stepping into your role in helping your customers change. So I really love that book.
That's awesome. And like I saw that Vicky asked a question earlier. We see Star Wars. I know you are a Star Wars fan. So how are you using any Star Wars stories that you want to share with us that really help you enhance your storytelling skills or presentation skills while you have that Star Wars icon there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a big fan of Star Wars, like a lot of people, like, Disney, whatever. Disney's probably the best storyteller of the age, from Moana to Frozen, and Star Wars is now in the heap of stories. Mary Poppins is a wonderful story. So I guess I love Hollywood. I love movies and stories. And I think the principles that make millions of dollars in Hollywood and movie making can be applied to business when you clarify in words what you're helping your customers with, and you're designing your presentation in a way that helps them transform.
Yeah, it's so true. That's pretty much how I do my own copywriting. I always start my very first sentence on social media with the emotional hook, like Disney stories, the up and down, the hero's journey. Oh my God, something bad happened, something good. So that kind of like really get people engaged. Yeah. That's great. Any particular names you want to share with us, like good presenters that you think we should follow? Everyone should definitely follow you besides yourself. And any really good.
So I'm going to say something controversial. I believe that the inside of everybody is an awesome presenter, because it's not about the performer. It's not about being the show person that delivers a wonderful TED Talk. It's about being you and being what you know. You've spent your career, your life learning about something, and you're in a position to help somebody else. So it's like you can really relax, and you could really be a great presenter by packaging what you know in a clear way to help somebody help somebody essentially. So I guess what I'm saying is some of the best presenters that I've seen, as a matter of fact, let me just tell one story. I was at a talk a few months ago, and a girl got up on stage. She was, I guess, in her mid-30s, and English was not her first language. She kind of struggled with words. And she was her relatively monotone. It was like she was talking like this and not like entertaining. But it was one of the best presentations I've ever seen, because she knew so much about, it was information design was the topic of the presentation. And she was showing how powerful information that is designed beautifully and clearly can change how people think. And it was such a great topic, and she knew so much about it that it was one of the best presentations I've seen. So I guess that taught me that don't focus on the sizzle or your how you come off or the sound of your voice or what you're wearing. I think focus on what you know and how much you want to share what you know, and you're passionate about what you know, and however it comes out is going to be gold, because it's going to be you and it'll be authentic. And guess what? That's what people want.
Wow, that is so powerful. I love it. And like each of us, we are good presenter. We just need to embrace it. So I love this comment from Krista, because it reminds me of what you mentioned, Greg, in one of the interviews you did with another person. And you actually ask yourself, what would Steve Jobs say? Something like about my work or about my slides, right? Is that something you do?
Yeah. So Steve Jobs, who is in heaven right now, and he's looking down on this conversation with us. And I often think whenever my team develops slides, what would he think about what we just created, about this slide? Is it clear? Is it beautiful? Is it simple? And sort of the things that you would imagine Steve Jobs to say, right? I think it's good to have sort of in the back of our mind a fictitious tutor or someone who sort of advises the projection of who we want to be in the work that we do.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. Yeah, I just want to make sure to share their website again. So those of you can actually go to the website and download some useful information and look at some examples. So any parting piece of advice that you want to share with us, Greg, in terms of, transforming our boring slide presentations into powerful conversations?
Yeah, so I think one bit of advice is don't, if what we've talked about here makes sense to you and you're like, you know what, I really want to fix my bad sales presentation, I would probably start by throwing away everything, like not try to fix what you have, and start with a piece of paper. Just get out a piece of paper and draw 3 circles, 1, 2, and 3, and then picture, in the session that you have, in an encounter where someone grants you the privilege of presenting and talking about what you have to offer, put into these 3 buckets, what are they called? What do you want to do in the first section, the beginning? What do you want to do in the middle? And how do you want to finish up? And that will help you, like, oh yeah, I can do that here. And that will help you create like a roadmap for the entire presentation. And once you have the roadmap, it's pretty easy then to go in and to start fleshing out some of the details of what you want to show. But the reason why I'm saying start with a piece of paper with 3 circles is because if you start with your existing presentation, the temptation is just to edit it and fix it and fix a word here and fix a word there, but you won't have the big picture fixed, and which is the most important thing.
I love it. The best way to disrupt something is to create something new. So start with a piece of paper, and I'm going to do this exercise myself. You actually give me so many great ideas, and I want to challenge everyone and to go home and figure out which piece of presentation that you want to fix and how you are going to fix that. We should start this campaign, and definitely keep me and Greg posted. I want to learn from you guys. Yeah. And thank you so much for this powerful, informative presentation. I loved it. I learned a lot, and I have lots of homework to do. And thank you so much, Greg. And that is their website. And so you guys check them out and follow them on social media. And thank you so much for joining us live. Everyone from all over the globe. We had someone from India, I saw in the comment. So thank you for joining us live. And I hope to see you guys next Wednesday, the same time, same location. Enjoy the rest of your week. And Greg, thank you so much again.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.